Hello people and welcome to a video about what I believe is the best EDH deck inside this competitive format. This is a deck that I've been playing myself quite a lot against a lot of different varieties of decks. It is also a deck that I've been playing against a lot with a lot of different decks that I've been playing. And this deck is just killing it all. This is our tier 1 deck, and most likely I truly believe that this is the best deck ever. If you haven't guessed it already, it's PST, Thrasios and Tymna. You use either Isochron Scepter with Dramatic Reversal, a 2-card 4-mana combo, where you need a setup of 3 mana production from non-land sources. So you tap Isochron Scepter, cast Dramatic Reversal for free, you untap all your rocks and you're netting plus mana, going infinite mana, and with infinite mana you draw your entire deck with Thrasios. The secondary combo is 1-card combo Paradox Engine, and you need to be able to produce 5 mana from non-land sources of permanents. You tap all those rocks and mana dogs, you draw a card with Thrasios, you cast that card, and you get an untapped trigger from the Paradox Engine, and now you can just repeat and potentially draw your entire deck. I am absolutely ready to be wrong. There's definitely a possibility that there is a deck out there that is better than this one, but my experience is telling me that this is the deck to beat and this is the deck to play. And in this video we're going to be doing two things. We're going to be analyzing why this is potentially the best deck ever. Second, we're going to try to see if we can build a budget version of this deck, because if this is the deck to play, then you could potentially get into cEDH on a budget, going for the strongest deck on a budget. To begin with, there's already one really important thing that is already making this deck into a really solid deck. We're playing Tymna and Thrasios, and especially we're playing Tymna. Tymna is potentially the best commander inside this format, especially teamed up with Thrasios. You suddenly have this game plan option, so you can go either with explosive mana production, ramping as much as you can and then cast Thrasios and start drawing cards with this commander. Or you control the game with some hate bears, some creatures. You can definitely play hate bears inside this PST deck, and you use those hate bears like Aven Mind Sensor, maybe a Scavenging Ooze, maybe even your Dorks, maybe even Thrasios, and you attack and draw cards with Tymna. So the commanders of choice are the best card drawing commanders inside this format. But we already have a bunch of other decks, other game plans with the same commanders, Thrasios and Tymna. For example, Hulk and Rassacats. But the thing with PST game plan is that every card inside that deck is actually considered good. For example, let's look at Flash Hulk. Let's remove these and put Hulk and Flash here. So this is a 2-card instant speed 2-mana combo that is really solid. I think Flash Hulk is a tier 1 combo. I just think that PST might be doing something that is better. So I actually think that these 2 cards are good. But let's look at the Shuffle Hulk package, the combo package for Shuffle Hulk. This is the complete package. And here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards that I consider bad, cards that I don't want inside my deck, and especially cards that I don't want to draw, and some games you actually end up drawing them. And you might say that Kozilek is actually good. I've actually been in a game against a Shuffle Hulk player that actually hard casted Kozilek, and this pretty much just ate a Social Plowshare and then it was gone. So I actually think that Kozilek is also one of the bad cards. A card that costs 10 mana isn't really that amazing. So while Shuffle Hulk has to fill his deck with potentially 6 cards that are considered bad, PST doesn't have to do that. They simply replace those 6 slots with more rocks and more interaction, which is pretty much just going to give PST a better deck overall. They don't have a single card inside their deck that they don't want to draw. Another really important part why I think PST is rocking it is because they can utilize Ad Nauseam to a great extent. For example, if you're playing the Shuffle Hulk strategy, you're gonna be having a card inside your deck on 10 mana and 7 mana. That will definitely decrease the potential of how good Ad Nauseam could be for that deck. While in the PST build, where you're utilizing Paradox Engine as much as you can, and you want to have a really low seams cost overall so that you can go for this Storm build, then you definitely will have a great deck for Ad Nauseam as well. And Ad Nauseam is one of the strongest cards inside this format. I might even actually say this, that if you build your deck correctly, you could turn Ad Nauseam into a 1-card combo. The same is true for the Rassakat's combo package. So here we have the big ass Rassakat's demon, a reanimator spell to bring it back into action, the cat to make the loop, and you usually have a lot more reanimator spells, so our deck becomes a little bit more consistent. And I might actually say that some of those reanimator spells are usually good. The cat, however, is actually kinda terrible. It's a bad card in general. Sometimes the cat is actually good, so I might say that this package is a little bit better than the Shuffle Hulk package. It's still a package compared to PST that doesn't have a package. Rassakats usually play Lion's Eye Diamond and Ariox Salvagers, and I might actually have to mention that this is a combo that you could include inside your own PST build. The 2 cards are in generally good. It's a 2-card 4 mana cost combo, pretty similar to Icycron Septon Dramatic Reversal. A big difference that this is pretty much all in. You sacrifice your hand size if you're going for this combo. So that is a big reason why you shouldn't include this combo to begin with. But having a Rassakat hanging around inside your deck for 8 mana will also be rather scary for your Ad Naus. But here comes the second reason why I believe PST is taking the spot of being the best deck ever. So the game plan is focused around Paradox Engine, and to make that happen, you need to have a lot of low CMC cost cards inside your deck, whatever cards, doesn't matter. That means that we're gonna fill our deck with interaction. I usually get something about 30 cards or so, or even more, that have an interaction. For example, the low cost Cyclonic Rift. You can overload this, but usually when you're going for the Paradox Storm, you just cast it for 2 mana. Duress is also a decent card. I kinda like Duress. And Duress is also a card that could build PST on a budget. Then we have Silence, Nature's Claim, Swords to Plowshare, Chain of Vapor, and 0 mana Engineered Explosive. All of this is just rituals when you have Paradox Engine in play. So you basically just activate Thrasius, draw Sword of Plowshares, cast it for 1 mana, untap everything because of the machine, and then you just repeat, and then you draw into this 0 ritual, you just cast it for 0 mana, and you continue. Having this much interaction makes it possible for our deck to shut down and make sure that fast combo decks don't win out of the blue, so that when we go into a mid-game, thanks to either Tymna or Thrasius or both, we have a higher hand size compared to all of our opponents, and because our decks is filled with so much dorks and rocks, we pretty much have the higher mana capacity. So with a higher mana count, more cards in our hand, we could pretty much win the game. We could cast our Paradox Engine with a lot of counterspell backup. But I have more advantages to mention about this build. This is a very open build. There is a game plan and a philosophy that you need to follow. You need to have a high ratio of mana producing non-land permanents, and your land count have to be really low. After that, you need to have a really low CMC cost overall. I don't think that is actually a problem. But you could include pretty much any card as long as it costs 1 or 2 mana. And it's a good card, of course. You can't just include cards that are bad. But cards that are good, and if they cost 1 or 2 mana, they could pretty much be played inside this deck. And you could tweak it a lot and play more hate bears, maybe some interactive win cons that could win the game with a beatdown backup plan. That is definitely possible. I've actually experimenting running Scavenging Ooze inside this deck. And that pretty much brings us to the next step of this video. Could we make this into a budget deck? So in the description below of this video, you will find a link to a budget-less version of this build. And what I'm gonna be doing now is look at some of the really expensive cards of that build and replace them with budget version. And also below that description, you'll then find a link to a budget version of this deck. But let's begin with replacing some of the cards. So the only card that you actually need to tutor is Paradox Engine. Paradox Engine is pretty much a one card combo inside this deck. Therefore we are running a big pile of tutors, and here are the tutors that I play. I play some more, but here are the expensive ones. So let's replace them. Even Enlightened Tutor is actually rather expensive. This is really expensive. Even if we do this, it is still expensive. So the first card we're going to be replacing is Demonic Tutor. I think that Praetor's Grasp is a solid choice. There's a high chance, a possibility, that one of your opponents is also playing Paradox Engine inside their deck. Not that likely, there's a chance, but a bigger chance is that they are playing Icy-Crown Scepter inside their deck. So you cast this for 3 mana, steal an opponent's Icy-Crown Scepter, then you need to have a Dramatic Reversal in your hand, you cast Icy-Crown Scepter, and then you have the win. Praetor's Grasp could also potentially be the finish. How PST wins is from Twister Loops, and we're going to be looking into what Twister Loops actually is. But this is a card that the Twister Loop could actually do. We're not going to be doing Twister Loop because Twister Loops demands Time Twister. So we're going to be looking at a budget alternative to the Twister Loop instead. But this is a really solid choice to win the game during the Twister Loops. I'm going to be replacing Enlightened Tutor with Merchant Scroll that can tutor for a blue instant. Then I'm going to be replacing Vampiric Tutor with Whir of Invention. So now I can use my Merchant Scroll to find Whir of Invention, and with Whir of Invention I can find my Paradox Engine. But also this could tutor and find Dramatic Reversal. I will also include Spellseeker and replace Imperial Seal with Spellseeker, because this can tutor for Merchant Scroll, that tutors for this. Or Spellseeker can find a counterspell, that is also good, but Spellseeker can also find Dramatic Reversal. Then I'm going to also include Limdul's Vault. I don't actually play any of these cards in my budget-less deck, by the way, but you could play them in budget-less decks. They are actually kind of good. Limdul's Vault is actually really good. And I'm also going to mention 2 more a little bit fringe cards, meta choice cards, cards if you're going up against mirror matchups. Here we have Fada Adele. This is an interactive combo, win con you could call it. She's a tutor that tutors in an opponent's deck, pretty much the same thing as Praetor's Grasp. So if you're going up against an opponent that also plays Paradox Engine, you could steal that Paradox Engine with her, but you can also use her to steal rocks or remove artifacts that you don't need that they need, for example Chain Veil. If this attacks into Teferi and exiles Chain Veil or Esther the Masked, they're gonna have a more trickier time to win. That also means that we could include, or mention at least, Acquire. I have actually played Acquire in some of my budget-less decks when I'm going up against mirror matchups. So for 5 mana, you search an opponent's deck and exile an artifact and put that artifact into play. This is the same mana cost for Paradox Engine, so this could potentially be a secondary Paradox Engine inside your deck. Now, because Acquire is a sorcery that could do the job, we could also include Mystical Tutor. I actually don't play Mystical Tutor in my budget-free deck, but this is a card that could tutor for Dramatic Reversal, or Acquire, or Limdul's Vault, or Whir of Inventions. I would also like to mention Inventor's Fair, definitely an underrated land. This is a tutor for 4 mana, you sacrifice it and put Paradox Engine into your hand, if you have 3 or more artifacts in play, that is. Then we have a bunch of rocks to replace, for example the reserved list, Grim Monolith, Mana Crypt, Crow Mox, Mox Diamond and Mox Opal, and these cards are actually really expensive. However, they are actually really easy to replace, because the only thing we need are permanents that tap for mana that aren't lands. But replacing those rocks are gonna make our deck weaker and slower. It's definitely easy to replace them, but the alternatives are a little bit more expensive, but definitely explosive. So we have a huge amount of really powerful green dorks that taps for a tremendous high amount of mana. If you have Threshold, this will untap 3 lands. And we have the Incubation Druid that you could upgrade, and now it taps for more mana. So in a longer game, this could turn into a big rock, a really expensive big rock. And we have some more big elf ball potential that could explode our mana production. That means that our Thrasius could draw a tremendous high amount of cards with these creatures, but also that when you draw your Paradox Engine, you don't need that many permanents to go off. For example, if you have this Thrasius and Paradox Engine and a bunch of other green permanents, then this might tap for 5 mana already. Now, if we're going down the pathway of including a high amount of dorks, then we should mention Intruder Alarm. Intruder Alarm is a secondary version, an alternative version to Paradox Engine. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield, untap all creatures. That means that when you tap these dorks for mana and draw a card with Thrasius and you cast this creature, you will untap all your other creatures to gain more mana and repeat the Thrasius ability and draw your entire deck. This requires that you build your deck with an extremely high ratio of creatures. So this is a build, a strategy, a game plan that I haven't practiced, I haven't tested it, but I would like to mention it. It is something that I have plans on testing on a budget-less version of the PST. Currently, I'm just mentioning it. This is Twister Loops. This is Twister Loops. You use Noxus Revival, Notion Thief pretty much just to secure that your opponents don't actually draw cards during the process, and Time Twister. So you cast Time Twister, Notion Thief is in play, so that you will draw something about 28 cards. Your opponents will be down to 0 hand size. Then you use Thrasius until you draw Noxus Revival. Cast this thing with your infinite mana, put this on top of your deck, draw this card with your Thrasius with infinite mana, and you cast Time Twister. Now Noxus Revival will go back into your deck, and you could repeat. And during every loop, just cast Praetor's Grasp and exile a card one by one until all opponents' decks are in face down exile, and then just pass turn. But I have some good news. Twister Loops is actually rather easy to replace. For example, we have the bow, the green bow, that will give all your attacking creatures death touch. That is cute. That is going to synergize with Tymna. But you could also put +1/+1 counters on your creatures. That is also going to synergize with Tymna, making her into a beatdown backup plan. But also you can use the bow to put cards on the bottom of your deck, and remember, with Isochron Scepter and Dramatic Reversal and Paradox Engine, we will untap all our stuff. So you can untap the bow infinitely and put any number of cards back into your graveyard, or from your graveyard into your deck. The same with Crosstown Reclamation and Memory's Journey. So you cast this thing, return this and some other cards, then you cast this thing, return this and some other cards. And then you also have a, let's call it memory loop. But when you take a look at my budget version of this PST deck, you're gonna notice that I actually don't play any of these free cards whatsoever. And you're gonna ask me, how do I actually win the game? Remember that with Paradox Engine and Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal, we have infinite untaps. So, if there is 20 instants and sorceries in all graveyards, we can do 40 life loss to all of our opponents. And if we just simply cast every instant and sorcery we have inside our deck, we could cast a spell, cast our own counterspell, and then cast another counterspell, cast another counterspell, cast another counterspell, and counter all of our own spells to fill our deck with instants and sorceries, our own counterspells. And then we just sit with our Deathrite Shaman and just eat our own instants and sorceries until all of our opponents are dead. I definitely think that we could fill our deck with 20 plus instants and sorcery, probably 35 or so. I got some more good news for you guys, that when it comes to interaction, there are some interactions that are really good. For example, Mana Drain and Abrupt Decay. They are really good interactions and you wanna have them. They're gonna upgrade your deck quite a lot. But it's easy to replace them. Just go any counter spell whatsoever and pretty much Fatal Push. Another Path to Exile might be a good replacement for this. In the end, it's not gonna hurt you that much to replace these cards with pretty much anything. Alright, that's it. That was everything I wanted to say about this deck. And this is definitely a deck that you could build in a lot of different varieties. This is a deck to look out for. This is a deck to know about. Because I definitely think that this is a tier 1, rock solid, the best EDH deck we have inside this format. That could change in the future, we will see how it goes. In the end, thank you so much for watching guys, and take care. I will see you in the next video.